And
I have him on Snapchat. He puts them on there too.
He's very good.
Is it site and building program?
Should be there. Now keep going. Keep going. Keep going down. That. What's the dimensions of that? At the top, like 157.
151 by 167.
One more time.
151 by 167.
151, 167. And you have this at 116th?
Yes. About. Might be a little off. So I just measured.
Hi, Andrew. How are you?
Hi, good. Good evening.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can. Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Okay. So we're all here. Well, Dan's not here. Professor Farrell's not here. But just a second. 151. 16. Yeah, this is close. Okay, so well, before we jump in, do you guys have what do you guys plan on showing tomorrow or this week? Should we open that up? Should we start from where your work has evolved to before we get into a conversation tonight?
I think we were going to go over everything today, and then we were going to meet Thursday in the later group to go over everything once we talked.
Okay.
Yeah, we were both available to meet on Wednesday.
Yeah, I can't meet Wednesday of this week. But the work I saw last Thursday, have you guys got more that you want to start from that conversation?
I think that's where we're at right now, right, Tasman? I think.
Yeah.
Just
so what I guess I want to it's going to be hard to do this without like having a camera on, you know, the drawing itself. I actually will try to do it like that. But you know, when you're laying these things out, right? And we have the site plan from the program brief up right now. We know that the ramp is going to take about 24 feet, right? I don't want this one. I want. So the ramp is going to take a huge chunk out of the building, and when you look at it relational to everything else that we've got, right? That's how much the first floor is, right? Just that. This is the first floor, right? This is that speed ramp, and while it's going down from the alley here, right, we realize that there's only kind of an L shape that remains, right? A thin liner of opportunity along outer leg of opportunity along John R. And the rocks in a canvas bag conversation that I was having basically says, you know, something doesn't seem right. So let me just double check this real quick because this looks big suddenly. But basically it meant that everything that was going to be running along 151 divided by 16.
This one's 32nd.
Oh, this is 132nd.
Yeah, this one's the 16, but it wouldn't like fit on the
now
page,
I get it.
so.
Thank you. So 151 divided by 151 1 divided by 32. So 1/32. So it doesn't take up that much room, Andrew, but
That's true.
1/32. So that's not a scale I like. 3/32. Three 1/32 of an inch. 1/32 of an inch. So 1 divided by 32 times 24 equals 0.75 of an inch, right? So I had it twice as big. So Andrew, it takes up, like that ramp takes up about that much room, right? On the first floor. That leaves, take that away, that leaves still an L-shaped footprint for everything else. Now, the other opportunity on the ground floor, you guys, is to have some parking. So you come in and you go out the speed ramp on the far west side of the site, right? You're going to have some parking. So if parking is 20 feet deep and you have a 20-foot aisle, that's 40. So 1 divided by 32 times 40. That's going to take an inch and a quarter of the site plan. You can probably do this all in your head, Andrew. You know, given your like high speed carpentry calculations that I'm sure you're good at, right? But
a little bit.
If you see what I've done here, right? I've configured some parking along a drive aisle. Now, what remains then? So that looks like this, right?
Okay.
Where this is the drive aisle, this is maybe some parking and the drive aisle, right? So knowing that I've got that footprint remaining, right? I say, okay, I've got a lot of first floor program that I've got to fit.
Do you mean like ground floor?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. That I've got to fit somewhere on the property. And on the first floor, that program says that I've got to have retail along the corner at that northeast corner, probably more along John R. and probably just an acceptable amount along Alfred, right? But like I was saying about the rocks in the bag, we're also going to have things like trash, right? Loading. We're going to have a stair probably down here. So, right? We're probably going to have a stair over here somewhere. I'll just put it here for now in the corner. And those are fairly remote from one another, and they'll work for an upper floor. And so all of that program starts to play out like this. So you put all of that, you put like the trash room and the generator, right? Because generators are going to need to breathe. Trash rooms need to have overhead doors that allow the trash to go out to the alley, right? I could probably get the retail in this realm here. I can probably get like a lobby in here that connects somehow, right, to the back of the building off of the street, right, off of Alfred and back to the back of house. So this leaves this whole area for mail room. And what are the other program elements that we have in that? Keep going up to the typewritten. My typing, that's printing. That's like stuff that I did in InDesign. Go all the way up there. So all of those things on page 5, on page 2 of the program brief, Andrew and Desmond, right? All of that stuff So I'm going to walk over here real quick. Yeah,
That's where it shows
ground
on the
floor,
percentage.
3,000 square feet of retail, a lobby that has a mail room, a sitting area, a leasing office, a meter room, building maintenance shop, mechanical room, electrical room, loading, unloading area, transformer that can go on the site, generator room, recycling and trash room, subgrade water cisterns if to be determined, bicycle storage. So you guys, while I appreciated the like the innovation, right, of the program spaces that you brought to the table, you have to account for all of those spaces first, right? And you're going to see that the inclusion of all of those spaces they're going to fill up, right? They're going to fill up all of like leasing office, mail room, right? Their bike storage maybe, or bike storage here. It's going to fill up all of this stuff. So in the shape of the L that you've got, where you privilege retail to the hard corner and to John R. and Alfred, the fact is some of these don't look good on the street. They're going to have windows in them. You're going to want to have windows on the ground floor as much as possible. So things like bike storage, that could be kind of an interesting program element that lets its sort of face show on the street. But the meter room, the generator room, the trash room, right? All of those things start to maybe line up on the west side, right, of that fat L. Do you follow what I'm saying, Andrew? I know you're looking at it upside down.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So
Really
what I want you to do sooner than later is work together, right? To and you can do this based on your instinct. Try to work through a layout for all of these first floor spaces, which have attributable areas to them, and say, okay, it actually makes sense that trash is along the alley, that the meter rooms are close to the alley but not next to it, that mechanical room is in those kinds of things, the electrical room, those kinds of things can be kind of down near the bottom and down near the right, but maybe those spaces don't necessarily have something along them. Pretty soon you're going to find that you've got a corridor, right, running through the back of house, right? And then maybe that corridor zigs and zags a little bit. Maybe that corridor runs out to the street or just directly out to the alley. And then that starts to link with other back of house stuff. So including all of those program elements in the first floor, a first floor that has nothing really to do, you guys, with what's going on upstairs in terms of footprint, is probably going to look something like this. The ramp is here. At some point, you can slip under the ground floor of the ramp, and all of this area here, I could probably draw this better, faster. All of this area here that I'm sketching on is outdoor space. So I'm going to summarize that. Right?
That makes sense.
So again, what I'm trying to say is the alley is here, John R. is here, and Alfred is here. You come down the speed ramp, and at some point, like when you walk under a stairway, you have a little like ability to bring some of that landscape across. But you're going to have basically a buildable footprint that you can mark out that looks like this. That's going to have an area, right? And that area is your ground floor area. and the reason I'm mentioning this is because some of these first floor program spaces are based upon a percentage, right, of the ground floor area. So if you have a 4,000 or an 8,000 square foot ground floor area, and you have to do like a meter room that's 2% of the ground floor area, you suddenly know, right, how big that room has to be, right? So that's how and the ziggy-zaggy lines that I'm doing here, that could be like a simple service corridor, right, that lets all of those spaces connect to each other and be back up and link all of the back of house spaces. So I'm gonna give you this. Now, that's the first thing that I do. The second thing that I do when I lay these out is, and this is exactly what I meant the other day when I said draw by hand. I've got the speed ramp coming down. So now I'm at the lower level, right? I've got the speed ramp that's gonna probably run to here, and it goes up, and like a stairway, it gets cut off, right? I know that ideally there's going to be a stair in the corner, and there's going to be maybe a stair down here. I kind of just, doing these things, I kind of know that. And I kind of know that putting them there right now, because I've done this class before and I've done this building before, I kind of know that it could work reasonably well when I start dropping parking spaces and drive aisles into that lower level. Now, I also know that there's going to be some moment where there's going to be elevators and things like that. I don't know where those are going to be. We can finesse that. But one thing that a lot of your colleagues have done are what I would call 90-degree parking spaces. I think you're going to find it a little, but you know that you can get it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can get about 6 spaces upstairs, right? You might even be able to get like 8 spaces upstairs if you did that, right? If you did that. So 6 here and 2 here, right? So you could get maybe 42, or you may need to provide like 42 or 44 spaces down below. One thing everybody's doing right now is 90-degree spaces, but I think you ought to consider like the fact that those spaces require 20-foot aisleways and 20-foot depth.
What do you mean by 90 degree?
So like the spaces I drew here on the site plan are 90 degrees. So in other words, a car, what kind of car do you drive?
Mercedes.
So your Mercedes parks like that,
Okay.
right? And that dimension is like that, 20 and 20.
Are you talking about the angled ones that they have in shopping centers or something?
So I'm talking about regular parking, 20 and 20. What I am saying for the lower level,
Instead of like the,
like in downtown Birmingham,
okay.
right?
All right, gotcha.
The parking is at an angle. And when you do angle parking, it takes up less width, right? So for me to get 3 rows of parking spaces in perpendicular parking, right? Like your Mercedes is parking there, that's 60 feet. But even just doing angled parking, I take up less width. So I may be able to get more spaces in a run that looks like that.
Why do they require less width?
Because that angle is less. That angle is less than 20 feet. And there's standards for that.
Ah,
right?
I get it.
So you'll have a 20-foot drive aisle, but you'll have, and if you look that up on the parking stuff, right? So you can actually have
And then Desmond and I spoke after the last class. We mentioned possibly doing 2 floors of underground parking. Is that something that normally wouldn't happen that we shouldn't
that
do?
or 1.5 floors underground. But this is what I'm saying.
Okay.
right? Because this dimension from here to the center line here is less than 60 feet. It's like 56 feet. And you may be saying, well, God, it's just a couple of feet. But like that's a big deal when you're laying out parking in a lower level. So I would try to do that. And I would look at the lower level as a simple arrangement of maybe one-way traffic that moves through the development something like that. So that when you're ready to leave, right? I added that one and I added that one. When you're ready to leave, you go back up.
That works.
Right? Now, so like another, I'm not saying that this works, but there's a good chance it does. It's my instinct. So that kind of thing. What I'm pointing to now is the new parking spaces, right? So this is how I think. When I'm laying these things out, I try to draw to scale, right? I draw in a forgiving medium on a base drawing like the site plan that is to scale, and I just operate on those instincts. And now I've got two plans, right, that are interconnected, right, and work with the parking, right? I don't have everything worked out yet, but I have enough to go on. And you both should flesh that out. Now what I do is I go to the upstairs.
Do you know what the slope is by any chance of that ramp? Is there like a certain?
Yes. So that ramp has a profile that starts at grade up at 0, and it drops. So I'm going to draw you the section. So what I've drawn is a section up at the top. At the alley, which is right here, you're at 0. You have a 20-foot, that's a dimension right there. You have a 20-foot paved sloping drive that's at 5%.
Okay.
That's a transition strip. And you have the same transition strip down at the bottom. And then in the middle, for the length that you need, right, you can go as much as 13%.
Makes sense. Okay.
You follow that, right?
Definitely.
Now, I don't know what your floor-to-floor height is from the ground floor to the lower level, but generally these are 510 feet long in length overall, given like a 12-foot floor-to-floor.
Mm-hmm.
You can finesse those numbers. You can go through the trigonometry to calculate that, and I encourage you to do that. And it's also in the package of information that we shared, that I shared with you from the fall semester, in the structural package from the fall semester. It was particularly Nancy Rodriguez's information. Okay, now upstairs, you can go about these things a couple of different ways. start with the footprint of the site. I'm always trying to contextualize the object into its context. I know right now that we can probably get about 12 units, maybe 13 units of floor. I know that there's going to be a stairway in the corner and there's going to be a stairway at the bottom. I know that because that was an assumption for the lower level and an assumption for like the ground floor level. Do those things have to stay there? No, we can finesse them. But when you finesse them, their final finesse place has to work in all levels, right? It's real easy to make it work on the res level. It's harder to make it work on the parking level, right? So if you make it work for parking, you can make it work for almost any level, right? So that's something to always bear in mind when you're laying these things out. That's why I always have said that you guys should like get right into the basement and work the basement up because it's gonna pay dividends for you later on instead of waiting until the very end, right? So I have the site plan. I have a sense of where the stairs are. I don't know exactly where the elevators are yet, although I've made an assumption that the lobby for the residences are here. And I kind of like the idea that the elevators are together and that they're near, right, the residential lobby, so that when like my mom and dad come and visit me, they don't have to, they know where the entrance is, right? There's probably a canopy out front, a couple of torch lights out there. They walk in, they see the receptionist or the concierge, and then they can move right to the elevator. But the elevator could be sort of anywhere along that realm, right? So let's not pin that down yet. What should we pin down first? If I remember, you had an L-shaped scheme.
It was a U.
It was a U-shaped scheme.
Yeah, it was similar to the one you sent the Walls of the City blog spot. There was one that was U-shaped. It was pretty much that one that was on there.
Yeah. So the U-shaped scheme gives you a lot of program opportunities. But a U-shaped scheme also, right? There's the U-shaped scheme. It also means that you have to have stairs here and here. You see that? You have to have a stair there at the end and a stair there at the end. So what I would try to do, given where you are in the class and given the nature of this beast, I would start with a simple L, right? And say, okay, if I do that, I know that the corridor is going to be sort of more or less down the middle, but it doesn't have to be. And it's going to look like that. I know that the corridor is going to be about 5 feet, maybe 4 feet, right? So right now I've got 2 nesting L's, right? With the corridor as the common thing linking them, looking like this. Capiche?
Got that.
And I know when I do an L or a U, I've got a moment where at the sort of armpit or the hinge of that L, where they articulate, where I've got the X now, I can't put any residential content there. Why do I say that so clearly? Because I can't really put like sleeping rooms and living rooms there because there's no wall, right, that would have glass. So that hinge, that armpit is really good for things like laundry rooms, bike storage or personal storage or telephone electric rooms, right? Shafts that might be coming through the building. So the dead zone, if you will, that armpit is actually your friend. So use that to the extent that you can. So that means I've got a bar that runs here facing south. I've got a bar here that faces west. I've got a bar of residential that faces north and east. I've got an opportunity for this unit here to have light coming in at the south and the west. Likewise here, likewise here. So those are really good 2-bedroom units. So now I'm going to want like a red magic marker or that orange Sharpie. Do you have a red Sharpie in there, Desmond?
Got red pen. Oh, I do.
Yeah, of course you do. So like these, you guys are really good for 2s. How many do we need in the building?
7.
7? 3 floors, 4 floors. So, yeah, you probably only need 2 per floor, but, right? So suddenly now I've provided instinct, right, on where those should go, Andrew, right?
Makes sense.
Right? Because those are like, those are the units that, because you have 2 faces or 2 facades that face different sunlight conditions, you can charge more for those, right? They're corner units. So those are the ones that you generally want to be the bigger units, right? And you charge more for just anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you do 4 floors of residential and you have how many 2-bedroom units as a requirement?
7.
7. So really you only need 2 per floor, right? 2, 4, 6, and maybe one on the top floor.
Penthouse.
Yeah. So you can skin that cat any way you want, but you've got sort of 3 options already. You only need to pick 2. You see what I've done?
That makes sense.
Okay. So now I know I've got some square footage now to divide up into units. So now I think I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So I think I've probably cut this cake into too many pieces. These are probably farther apart than I've shown.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? But
Okay.
that's okay, because those are just conceptual demising unit walls. So when I do, because I know I'm going to have 4 floors, right, of residential. So 4 floors, 50 divided by 4 is 12.5 per floor. So if I hit 12 per floor, right, so I start over. So maybe stairway. Maybe the 2-bedroom unit is here. Corridor runs down the middle. We know we have an armpit space here, but maybe like this is exercise or laundry.
Do we need the exercise on every floor?
No. So 1. And you don't need laundry on every floor.
Would you recommend
So-
putting the laundry and the exercise room all in one floor, or kind of scatter them throughout different
I would
floors?
scatter them. Knowing
Every other
now how this is going to shake out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And maybe in the same spot, just so they could relate to it and they know.
Yes. Yes, I would do that. I would stack them.
Okay.
Is that what you meant?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Makes sense.
Right?
Okay.
So now I'm sort of saying, okay, I've got an interesting sort of approach here. And the lengths of those spaces, those can all be finessed by you. But now on the second floor, right? Right? I've got some program from the first floor right here. This is the roof of that back of house stuff on the first floor.
Okay, so we have an outdoor space or something. Is that what you're getting at, or?
Yeah. So the second floor units can be
Terrace?
yeah, so like unit 8, 9, and 10, you see that? Can have terraces, right? I've always said that if I lived in one of these, take the second floor. The penthouse, not so much. You know, I'm not Kanye, right? That doesn't interest me. What interests me in these buildings is the idea that I can like walk right in, take the stairway up to get to my unit, and similarly, like reverse that process to get out. I can be in and out of the building very quickly, and get my exercise at the same time. So even if I lived like at the Townsend Hotel, I would live on the second floor, and I'm not alone. Because when I was at Victor's office, we laid out Mr. Gore's suite in the Townsend Hotel, and he wanted the second floor for the same reason. I thought, how interesting. So that's an idea, right? Like finding a way to make lemonade out of those lemons, using the roof of that first floor stuff, right, as an opportunity, right, for some of those units, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though they don't necessarily have the great view, they could, right? Now, we still haven't figured out where the elevators go. But in my mind, the elevators can go sort of anywhere in this area here, where in the red circle.
So they can't go like against.
Yeah, the lobby.
Well, because the lobby is down there, right? So let me overlay that. The lobby is here. So this is that same circle, right? Brought down to the first floor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now I just got to go, okay, how does it work down below, right? And this is where it gets painful, right? So I'm going to trace that same circle down below. Right? So it's not working, right? Where should it go? It should probably go south about 15 feet. It should probably go somewhere here and somewhere here. And right now, I'm going to take your green marker. Is that really green?
I've got a green pen.
And I'm gonna wager it's that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know that one will work upstairs. Because I've got a lot of units. So the elevator works okay upstairs if it goes there. This is why I wasn't so worried about how many units and how big they were at this moment, right? Because I knew I had this detail to solve. But that could work, right? Can it work downstairs on ground level 1? All day long, right? Excuse me. And that's how you do it. It's really, it's really that simple, right? You used the site plan information and got your directive from the language in that site plan, and you included the parking floor in your early conceptual thinking. You still have a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
Finding a way to get all of that content into that first floor plan, but I think it's workable. And by the way, if I could have like the orange marker, just, will that show up? I think that'll show up. It's kind of phosphorusy. But that ground floor plan, you guys, does not have to be pure, right? That ground floor plan can, it can do that. You see the orange line that I drew?
Oh, I see. Okay.
I'm exaggerating it, but basically it can zig and zag to meet the ground floor program space requirements,
Okay.
right? Because it's just back of house stuff. And some of the roof, most of the roof of it will be decked, right? It'll have terraces over it.
Okay.
Right? And whatever's left over, that's the outdoor space.
I see.
Now, the only other detail is that when you decide that you know where the elevator is going to go on that lower level, we know the elevator is going to have to open to the corridor. So I know that this is the diagram for the elevator upstairs, right? That's the elevator, that's the corridor. And it has to do it has to do it that way downstairs too. But it can open in the opposite direction down below.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? So that may be how this works better for you downstairs, where you've got parking spaces and the like. So what I would encourage is like a lobby like that around the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is pointing to that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right?
That makes sense.
So the elevator opens up into the corridor upstairs and into the first floor, but downstairs in the basement, you want to take advantage. What it means is there's some parking spaces that you're going to lose, right? But you take advantage of that because you want to maintain that drive aisle, right?
Definitely.
So that's why we do that.
So how do we, like, if we wanted space under that for parking, how do we incorporate the driving?
Space where for parking?
Like, if we don't have enough parking spaces.
You will.
On this. Oh, okay.
I'm confident that you will.
Okay.
Did you look at the plans from last semester?
Which ones?
I gave you guys in the Google Drive projects, the 2 top projects from last semester.
Oh, I saw those. Yeah.
You need to look at those projects.
These ones.
You need to look at their plans.
Okay.
I know this works. And remember, right? Remember, don't be such an Eeyore here, right? Right? We have 6 or 8 possible spaces, right? So you only need to get 42 or 44 downstairs, right?
Okay.
So no woe is me.
I'm not.
Right? We can do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This stuff is hard. I'm trying to make it look simple, to give you some encouragement and to, you know, if you can see it, you can be it kind of thing. I'm trying to like get you guys to like think that quickly. I'm trying to get you guys to think 3-dimensionally, but I'm also trying to get you guys to think in terms of priorities, right? So lay out the ground floor first with some instincts like the ones I gave you. Like, where do stairs go? Where do elevators go? Do we have to pin that stuff down right now? No. I think the stairs get pinned down first, and then we come back to the elevators. Indicate the speed ramp. Figure that out sectionally and in terms of its plan, length, and width. That width is always about 24, 25 feet, okay? That takes up a big chunk of your first floor. And then conceptually, it's got to address the 2 streets, right? And we also know that some of the back of house stuff is going to sag toward the alley to gain access to the services that the alley provides that building. But remember, this drive aisle here, right? Like, I can service the building with this little cutout just because this drive aisle is here, right? I can still slip a truck in here, like a Snapple truck, right? And make a delivery and then be out of there before the dude that needs to leave right away is gone. Because the cars that park here during the day might be the people that are working. Hey, Rasha. That are probably working, you know, they're parking there.
Okay.
Okay.
And then as far as I guess they can go.
Yeah, you just figure out where those are going to be, right?
Okay.
So that's another thing, right? So the handicap spaces generally fill up the slowest in most developments. So maybe it's these 2 spaces here, right? So they'll never get used.
All right.
Now, in this kind of program, they would get used more quickly because all of us are handicapped at my age, right? But but that's how you approach it.
I see. Okay.
All right. Now, this is only part of what you all have to have for your reviews next week. But I think if you work now to lay these things out this quickly, you'll be able to make it. And north is up. Second through 4th floor. Now, we haven't talked about the 5th floor yet. But the 5th floor may not have as many units on it. Because if we have 3 floors of 12, that's 30. Yeah, it'll probably have as many units. But if you got 13 units per floor, right? That's
13 times 3, 39.
Thank you. So we only need 11, right, on the topmost floor, 11 units. So assuming assuming 13 units per floor, We still have the stairways coming up. We still have the elevator coming up, right? We still have a lot of units. This is the shape of that building door, right? So if I'm gonna hold back, if I'm gonna drag 2 units and only furnish or provide 11, then the built-out architecture on the roof is narrower or shallower, right? So I may say, like right here, I'm gonna stop the units. I'm gonna do whatever I'm doing downstairs, right? Here's the armpit, right? Unit there, maybe, you know, maybe that's a different, like a laundry room there. And and all of this equals 11 units. Well, you got the point, right? So that would be 11 units. So then this area here is an outdoor amenity space,
Ooh,
right?
the
Do you follow? Which could have a summer kitchen in it, right? And it could be linked, right, to, because it's linked to the elevator, right? It could be linked to the stair. So here's the summer kitchen. And then suddenly this can be all wood deck. Capiche?
That definitely helps.
Is this starting to come together in your heads?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, these are yours.
Thank you.
Photograph.
I can stand.
That's how I do these. Literally, I work on them this quickly because there's so many other important, I don't know if these are any good. There's so many other important things that, that was, I think on this site, I'll just tell you, so these are all yours. I'll just tell you that I think the U-shaped plan is problematic if the U's legs touch the alley. Just in terms of stairways, right? Because if I had a U, I'm going to have a stairway down here and a stairway down here. Right? Right?
Definitely.
And I mean, you can go this way, but I also know that the speed ramp is going to have to sit in there somewhere. So suddenly the stairway's location becomes problematic for the speed ramp. Maybe it can work, but maybe that the option is that the C or U is like that. But I'm still stymied, right? Because I've got to have my speed ramp coming in here. Right? Do you see why I'm kind of dismissing that U / C shape? Because the final analysis for both of them is bugger, right? It's just, so I know that that's going to be a harder problem. So I kind of like just run away from that and go with the idea that the L allows for all that residential program and residential content to fit within it, yield about 12 floors and all of that other stuff that needs to go on each floor. And It's a smaller footprint, so it's more efficient. It creates less interferences, vertical interferences.
Hmm.
My wife is wanting to take me out to dinner. Does that make sense?
Definitely helps. Thank you so much.
Well, no worries. I'm happy to do it. And I got to meet Desmond today for the very first time.
Oh yeah, in person.
All
One
right.
more question. As far as the final,
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna look at flights and see which day is cheaper. Depending on that, could we just put our final, me and Dasmine, on whatever day, that Tuesday or Thursday, I would think it was.
Oh, you mean for the one in April? You're
Yes.
thinking of coming in?
Yeah, I'd probably fly down for either one. I'll see which one is cheaper.
Okay.
Um,
Well, the reviews are at night, right? They're 5:30 to 5:30 to 9:30 either night. So I'll work with you.
Okay, I'll
You
figure out which
find
one.
a flight that works for your budget. I appreciate this, by the way, and we'll make it happen.
Okay, definitely.
But you got, let me tell you this. You got to have a backup plan.
Okay.
I have a student who wanted to do what you did. She lives in Ottawa.
All this
Okay.
known.
And she drove for 11 hours. She's from Canada. She drove for 11 hours and got to the tunnel, crossed the tunnel, and they turned her back.
For what? Did she have a lime in her trunk?
No, they didn't believe that she would do what she did.
Wow.
They didn't believe her. They didn't believe that she was a student and that she was just coming in for one day to give a presentation. That what school would do this? None of what she said, all of which was the truth, was something that the American border guards accepted. So she had to turn around, and she drove to her brother in London, which was another 2 hours back.
Wow.
She was exhausted.
That's
She was
crazy.
in tears the next day.
Oh.
So she had a backup plan. You have to have a backup plan, like in
Definitely.
case your flight is diverted or there's another snow event in April, like the one we got yesterday.
Don't do a terrorist attack.
Just
Right.
have a backup plan,
Okay, definitely.
like a worst case scenario, like
Yeah.
Airbnb, buddy's house in Cleveland. If you have to get diverted, you know what I'm saying? Just be aware that if things can go wrong. That's all. But I really appreciate that you're going to go through this effort to be here. So it's not going to go unwasted.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
Cool. I'm going to close out. You guys can reconnect on another session of Hangouts.